Merry Atlantis, everybody. Kawaii50 here with another Fake Grand Order video, here to talk with you about someone a lot of us have been waiting for. The absolute supreme Grand Archer, Super Orion. Wait, hang on a second, that's an alternate costume that's coming for him in the future. Let me go ahead and put something more current up there. There we go, that's the Super Orion you know. We're going to be going over all aspects of Super Orion's kit, considering craft essences, command codes, as well as allies to make this absolute Giga Chad work for you. And seriously, he's gonna be putting in some work. Chuck this man on your support list for all of your friends and the newbies, folks. And hey, if this video helps you out, maybe consider liking and subscribing, because that really helps me out. Orion is Buster Crit Incarnate, coming with a quick Arts in 3 Buster card deck with an Arts Noble Phantasm that deals no damage. But you're honestly not going to have to worry about that. His max HP of 13,494 is pretty solid, and his max attack of 12,557 is, at this time, the 12th highest attack stat in the entire game, though you're going to be able to make that go further beyond. His NP per hit is pretty high at a 0.96%, but he's only got one Arts card, so don't expect to gain that Noble Phantasm super quickly. His star absorption, though, is what you can expect from an Archer class, being fairly high, so he will gobble up all of those stars, which is honestly what we want to see. Super Orion's first skill is the Stout Arm of Brutality, rank B+. This gives him one turn of 30 to 50% Buster card effectiveness, and also gives him a special attack against demonic and wild beast enemies, of which there are many in the game. You're going to want to go ahead and max this skill second, because this is one of his biggest damage steroids, and if you use this on a turn where all 3 of his Buster cards are up, well, expect the enemy to go down without much of a fight. Orion's second skill is Moon Goddess's Pressure, rank EX, and I'm sure we've seen a lot of that through events. It gives him a Guts, and it also increases his attack by 10 to 20%, while immediately gaining him critical stars. This is Orion's primary defensive tool. He doesn't have anything like an evade or an invincibility to keep himself alive. You're going to want to go ahead and max this last, though. Orion's primary desire is oodles and oodles of damage, and that 10% attack boost, while nice, isn't really something we need right out the gate. What we need instead is Orion's third skill. The name of that third skill is Tri-Star Archer, rank A+. This gives him a 300 to 500% critical gather rate boost and also a nifty buff. You see, it will increase his critical strength by 50 to 100% when attacking with Buster cards. This is 3 times over 3 turns this is going to last. So you are going to see Orion's critical damage shoot up whenever you hit an enemy with a Buster attack. It can get absolutely insane, to the point where you should not be surprised if you see your Orion critting for 1 million plus damage. And that's not an exaggeration, that is straight up fact. You can see so many videos from other content creators on YouTube that show them doing exactly that. It is for this reason that we max this skill first. There is no substitute. This is the skill you want to focus on first. For Archer's Append skill, we're just going to go with Mana Loading, granting him a 10 to 20% boost. The main reason being that he doesn't really have a lot of ways to reliably charge his Noble Phantasm. Sure, he'll get a nice crit off that single Arts card, and he might get a little bit after using his NP, which is Arts-based, but it's not really something that's consistent, nor is it something you should rely on. So that starting NP gauge is really going to help him out. Speaking of Noble Phantasms, Orion's is Artemis Agnos, rank B. This grants him a 30 to 50% boost to his attack, and also grants him the ability to ignore invincibility and become completely immune to debuffs. Oh, he also gains 10 critical stars every single turn for 3 turns, so it's basically a max limit broken fragment of 20-30. Also, he gets a critical strength buff because that clearly just wasn't enough, and this is tied to overcharge, so that can be a 100 to 200% boost. Definitely chuck this Noble Phantasm last in any sort of Noble Phantasm chain, so you can maximize the critical strength gain that your Super Orion is going to get. So who do we pair Super Orion with in order to max his potential? Well, obviously your first thought is going to go to a Buster supporter despite his Noble Phantasm, because those 3 cards are his primary source of damage, so focus on a Merlin more than anything else. Anybody of the lesser rarities, like say a Helena Blavatsky, or even someone like a Nightingale at 5 stars, is really going to go far towards helping Super Orion. When it comes to other specific allies I'm going to mention, I'm going to focus solely on critical damage. Critical damage is where the vast majority of Super Orion's damage comes from, so anyone we can chuck on the team to increase that is going to be a boon for you. Let's start with a freebie option in the form of Bart Roberts. Now, Bart Roberts is a little unique in that he's able to reduce his own critical star gather rate while increasing his allies' critical damage. So even though he's a rider, he's not going to be eating up those stars that you want Super Orion to get. He can also generate 10 to 20 critical stars, and considering the low investment into any of the low rarity characters' skills, this is something you're going to want to go ahead and get, so you can get Orion a quick 20 critical stars. Even though he's got that Noble Phantasm strength boost that Super Orion isn't really going to benefit from, the other bonuses he provides make him more than worthy of getting a slot on the team. There is another archer that can help your Super Orion in the form of Calamity Jane. You're going to have to sacrifice some critical stars on a turn to do it, but use it on a turn where you didn't draw any of Super Orion's cards, and it will pay off in spades. Of course, Polar Star Shine My Way is the main skill you're focusing on, which will grant Super Orion critical strength, star gather rate, evasion, ignore invincibility, and a nice NP gauge boost so he can use his Noble Phantasm. Messenger of the Galaxy is a nice boost too, with that 80% chance to increase Super Orion's attack, as well as the ability to grant him some more Noble Phantasm gauge. Pretty solid. So we're using Calamity Jane, a servant who wants to be swapped in with a craft essence that generates critical stars, so we can go ahead and use her skill. That is a very common strategy for her. Of course, it stands to reason that we want to use another servant with which this is a common strategy, and that servant is Chiron. Chiron, of course, would generate those critical stars with that craft essence, but he'd also grant Super Orion some very powerful bonuses. Wisdom of the Divine Gift would increase the effectiveness of all of Super Orion's cards, and Eternal Dedication would also grant him a massive 30 to 50% crit damage boost, as well as some critical stars to boot on top of that. If you're using Chiron rather than Calamity Jane, swap him in when you've got the majority of Super Orion's cards up, so you can generate a lot of stars and immediately go in on a crit damage bonanza. I also think special mention should go to Prince of Lon Ling. Not only does the Prince have an ability to increase Super Orion's attack by 30 to 50% off his Noble Phantasm, but he also has the ability to charge Orion's Noble Phantasm if need be, but most importantly, Demonic Visage is going to be very, very helpful. Not so much for the Arts Card Effectiveness boost, but the Star Drop Rate boost, and most importantly, that 30 to 50% critical damage. This is just yet another way to stack more critical damage on Super Orion. And finally, I've got to give a huge recommendation to Sherlock Holmes, solely for his Noble Phantasm. His Noble Phantasm decreases the enemy's defense and gives Orion more turns of Ignore Invincible, as well as Ignore Defense, which is pretty awesome. He also can grant Super Orion 50 to 100% critical strength, making sure those crits hit for even higher amounts of damage. The Arts Resist isn't nearly as effective as it is with other characters, but that Noble Phantasm is just too good to not use, and it's also tied to Overcharge. So hey, if you've got a Noble Phantasm chain, use whoever else's Noble Phantasm it is, followed by Sherlock Holmes, followed by Super Orion's, to ensure that Orion gets a huge critical damage bonus. For craft essences, we want to focus on Buster Card effectiveness and, of course, that critical strength more than anything else to maximize Super Orion's damage. If you manage to get Bestia del Sol from the recent Saber Wars 2 event, this is a good budget option for Super Orion. The quick card effectiveness isn't necessarily the best, but the Buster Card effectiveness and critical strength are something that Orion is definitely going to appreciate. If you're a veteran player, you can also consider chucking on Hot Spring Under the Moon from the Onigashima event that feels like it was eons ago. This grants a solid 20 to 25% critical damage and 3 to 4 critical stars per turn. If we're getting into the options of craft essences that are a little more expensive, those from the Gacha that is, consider Starry Nights, a craft essence I personally really enjoy. This grants Buster Card effectiveness, critical strength, as well as a starting NP gauge, allowing Orion to use his Noble Phantasm much faster. And if I had to pick a best craft essence for Super Orion period, it is without question Hero on the Beach. Hero on the Beach featuring Arthur Pendragon increases Buster Card effectiveness, critical strength, and grants critical stars every single turn. This is an absolutely incredible boon for your Super Orion. If you have this in your second archive, chuck this on him immediately. And finally, of course, we have the command codes. If you're looking for an easy budget option, go ahead and throw Code Burst on all of Orion's cards, especially those Buster cards. It's a flat 3% critical damage boost, and this boost is going to be very, very helpful with damage. But if you pulled Super Orion, odds are you're going to go a little more ham into boosting up that critical damage. Consider Lady of the Red Jewels Command Seal, which is a 10% critical damage boost, or Command Seal of a Cardinal-Minded Retainer on those Buster cards for a 15% boost. There's also, of course, Mistress of the Heavens, which is a mammoth 25% boost to those cards, and I feel like if you're planning to pull Super Orion, you probably saved this specifically for him. This is, without question, the best command code he could possibly equip. But any critical damage, you really won't be able to do any sort of wrong. Gang, I said a while ago that Super Orion was one of the best servants that was going to come out this year, and that still remains true. This is a man who is absolutely worthy of the title of Grand Archer, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw it animated at one point, Super Orion pummeling Gilgamesh into the dirt, and I'm going to go ahead and stand by that. Super Orion is an incredible single-target critical focus damage dealer, and if you really like seeing big numbers on Fate Grand Order, numbers in the millions, then he is a servant you are definitely going to want on your side. Get him onto your side, invest in him, and Super Orion is going to be able to pull you through tons and tons of content. And if you're a new player watching this and you're stuck on a certain Knight of the Sun from Camelot, go ahead and grab a Super Orion from a friends list, and I promise that that mission is going to be a lot easier for you. You're welcome for that tip. But gang, I'm just one person, so let me know your thoughts about Super Orion down in the comment section below. Let me know if you think there's anything I might have missed, or if you have any fun comps that you've been using your Super Orion in. I know he's a servant a lot of people are really excited for, and I really hope I get to be able to pull him someday. Wasn't lucky recently, but we'll see how it goes. If you want to talk more about FGO, or even just flex your Super Orion pulls, my Discord server is of course always open. I want to give a big thanks to the patrons on Patreon, the subscribers and followers on Twitch, and of course you on YouTube for giving me the strength and the fortitude, like Super Orion, to be able to come out here and make all of these videos. Thank you all so much. Anyways, gang, this is Kawaii50. I hope you all have a phenomenal day, and I'll see you all in the next video.